Ron Jeremy, Denzel Washington, Beyonce Knowles, Ellen DeGeneres, Whoopi Goldberg, Lady Gaga, Chrissy Teigen, John Legend, Joan Rivers, Rob Saget. Do you want me to keep going?
There comes a point in every Hollywood scandal when whispers can no longer be ignored, when the quiet rumors transform into deafening war cries. And right now, that moment has arrived for Sean Diddy Combs. But what has the entire industry trembling isn't just another fallen superstar. It's the fact that one man, a comedy legend with nothing to lose, has been calling this storm long before the rest of us saw the clouds. Katt Williams didn't simply speculate about Diddy's downfall. He declared it with the certainty of a prophet. Back in January 2024, while most of us were glued to gossip blogs chasing half-baked headlines, Katt sat in that Club Shay chair, calm and collected, dropping a bomb. P. Diddy gonna catch hell in 2024? Not maybe, not possibly. He said it as fact. And when a man who's made his career dragging Hollywood's skeletons into the light speaks with that kind of conviction, you don't laugh it off, you take notes. This isn't just another insider. Katt has turned down, allegedly, multi-million-dollar offers to take part in the so-called games happening behind mansion doors. Where others saw opportunity, he saw corruption, and he walked away. That decision cost him jobs, endorsements, and an easier life in Hollywood. But it also gave him credibility, because while everyone else was saying yes to invitations that came with hidden strings, Katt was saying hell no, choosing exile over complicity. Fast forward and suddenly federal agents are raiding properties, celebrities are scrubbing social media like their careers depend on it, and whispers of a list connecting some of the biggest names in Hollywood to Diddy's alleged world of excess are making rounds online. Suddenly, Katt's so-called comedy routine looks a lot more like investigative journalism dressed up as stand-up. And here's the twist. When a man Hollywood painted as unstable and paranoid starts being validated by indictments, sealed court documents, and nervous silence from A-listers, you realize he wasn't predicting Diddy's fall at all. He was documenting it in real time. Then came the list, the alleged roster that didn't just stir gossip. It shook the entire foundation of Hollywood's carefully polished image. Imagine reading a lineup that mirrors the front row of the Oscars or the VIP lounge of the Grammys. Leonardo DiCaprio, Jay-Z, Beyoncé, Ashton Kutcher, Paris Hilton, Howard Stern, Russell Brand, and more. These weren't just faces at parties. They were allegedly tied to gatherings that have since taken on a much darker reputation. And the names didn't stop there. Ron Jeremy, Denzel Washington, Ellen DeGeneres, Whoopi Goldberg, Lady Gaga, Chrissy Teigen, John Legend, Joan Rivers, Bob Saget. The list, whether you believe it or not, went on and on like a Hollywood directory gone wrong. But what happened next was perhaps even more telling than the names themselves. Hollywood didn't respond with fiery denials or righteous indignation. Instead, silence swept across social media like a blackout curtain. Feeds that once buzzed with daily updates went dark. Posts vanished. Followers were left stunned, refreshing timelines for statements that never came. And let's be clear, this wasn't just coincidence. This was coordinated damage control on a scale only Hollywood knows how to pull off. In an industry where image is everything, the decision by some of the most media-savvy celebrities in the world to stay silent rather than speak out spoke louder than any denial ever could. The moment that alleged list surfaced, the comparisons to Epstein's infamous client roster came immediately, and for many they were impossible to ignore. But insiders say this case feels different, darker. While Epstein's network was built around power games and blackmail, what's being whispered about Diddy's alleged circle carries something far more chilling. Sources claim it wasn't just about private parties or forbidden fun. It was about activities that could allegedly leave lasting consequences. Not the kind you can cover up with a PR statement, not the kind you can bury with money. We're talking about whispers of health risks and manipulation, consequences that follow people long after the party ends. Multiple sources have painted a picture of these gatherings as operations designed to control, compromise, and allegedly entrap. Careers can be rebuilt, reputations can be managed. But if these claims are true, the impact runs far deeper. into territory that no publicist or legal team can spin away. In a culture obsessed with image, the choice of silence by some of the most media-savvy stars in the world doesn't look like ignorance. It looks like desperation, a shield to keep devastating secrets hidden. And here's the unnerving part. This alleged list might only represent the tip of an iceberg that has been melting in plain sight for decades. As explosive headlines multiplied, another battle was playing out in the shadows, not in courtrooms, but online. Celebrities linked to that list weren't just avoiding interviews. They were wiping the slate clean. Entire digital histories were vanishing overnight. Take Usher, for example. His entire Twitter archive disappeared in a single sweep. The official line? A hack. But insiders whisper it was deliberate deletion. Years of posts scrubbed before anyone could dig too deep. Pink, on the other hand, had already fortified her accounts months before the scandal exploded, clearing platforms in what now looks like preemptive damage control.
Filled with chicks and orgying like nonstop, right?
No, not really. I mean, but hey, it was curious. I got a chance to see some things.
Yeah, but you were 13. What were you seeing?
I went there to see the lifestyle.
Then came Megan Fox, erasing nearly her entire Instagram and Twitter presence, as if dismantling her public life brick by brick. This wasn't routine PR housekeeping. This was panic, a collective push of the delete button across Hollywood's upper tier. Meanwhile, old clips and interviews began resurfacing with a whole new weight. Khloe Kardashian once laughed in an interview about attending a Diddy party where, in her words, half the people were butt naked.
Court, I got on a plane at 5:30 a.m. Go to this party. I think half the people there were butt naked.
At the time, it played as harmless celebrity gossip, funny, salacious, forgettable. But in the wake of new allegations, that same clip carries a much more disturbing implication. Suddenly, it reads less like an offhand remark and more like a breadcrumb in a larger puzzle. These orchestrated digital retreats reveal more than simple reputation management. They radiate fear, control, containment. In Hollywood, timing is everything, and the timing here is too perfect to be dismissed as coincidence. Multiple A-listers scrubbing years of content at the same time? That looks less like paranoia and more like a legal strategy, one carefully crafted by crisis management firms working overtime to stay 2 steps ahead of federal investigators. But here's the flaw. In 2025, the internet never really forgets. Deleting content online is like smashing glass in a crowded room. Every shard gets noticed. Screenshots multiply. Archives preserve what stars want erased. And digital sleuths are documenting the deletions themselves, turning the eraser into evidence. The Streisand effect is alive and well. The harder these celebrities try to bury their pasts, the more the world wants to dig them up. And as the dust settles, one question echoes louder than ever. What are they so desperate to hide? For 30 years, I've done nothing but gather information. That's how one insider framed the shocking claims now sending shockwaves through Hollywood. The whispers are no longer just about who attended Diddy's infamous gatherings. They're about who allegedly participated and what may have taken place behind those closed doors. If even part of these accounts prove credible, the fallout could erase careers and dismantle legacies overnight. One name repeatedly mentioned is Denzel Washington, an actor long celebrated for roles built on moral strength and authority. According to testimony being circulated, he was allegedly seen at one of these gatherings in what witnesses describe as a ritualistic setting. Details are unusual, even bizarre, and reportedly involve minimal clothing and symbolic behavior. Importantly, some accounts note that younger individuals may have been present. It's a claim so specific and so disturbing that investigators say it could be cross-checked if inquiries continue. Other reports go further, with witnesses pointing to physical identifiers of certain male attendees, descriptions detailed enough that, if verified, could undermine alibis. These are not broad accusations. They're granular claims that carry the weight of potential forensic evidence. Leonardo DiCaprio's name has also surfaced. Insiders allege there are recordings showing him involved in coded activities, referred to in whispers as playing hot dog. While the phrase is cryptic, sources insist it refers to acts that, if confirmed, would be catastrophic for his reputation and could shake the entertainment industry to its core. Then come Jay-Z and Beyoncé. The Carters, often seen as music's most untouchable power couple, are said to appear in multiple alleged recordings. Sources claim these tapes could show them in situations that clash with their carefully crafted image as relationship icons and business moguls. Their silence as federal investigations continue has only fueled speculation that there may be more beneath the surface. Jennifer Lopez is another name woven into these stories. Having dated Diddy during the height of his influence, she reportedly appears in multiple recordings spanning their years together. Some suggest this alleged involvement was not incidental but recurring, raising questions about why she's remained so quiet about that chapter of her life for decades. And then there's Justin Bieber. After his much-publicized 48 Hours with Diddy, sources say the young pop star's behavior shifted dramatically. His spiral into heavy partying, drinking, and pills has long puzzled industry observers. Insiders now suggest trauma tied to those alleged experiences may have played a role. What could push a teenager with dreams of music into that kind of self-destruction? One observer asked. The whispered answer, a Diddy party. Usher's alleged role is described in particularly troubling terms. Some sources claim he was once caught in the system himself, only to later take on a different role. Reports suggest he may have used his mentorship of Bieber to introduce him to the same environment he had previously endured. Investigators refer to this as a troubling cycle, where those harmed may in time perpetuate the very system that entrapped them. If true, these claims expose more than individual failings. They hint at a larger machine, a structure built not just to protect power, but to weaponize it. Insiders say this alleged network wasn't just built on secrecy, it was engineered like a business empire. According to sources, contracts and codes tied each new participant into a web of control. Nothing was random. Every introduction, every connection, every so-called mentorship came with strings attached. One of the most unsettling claims centers on Justin Bieber's early years. Sources allege that when Usher introduced him to Diddy, both men gained leverage, ownership, so to speak, over pieces of Bieber's career. For skeptics, that theory explains why all three have remained conspicuously silent about those years. Silence isn't just absence. In Hollywood, silence can be strategy. And the circle, according to these accounts, didn't stop there. Names like Birdman, Young Jock, and others in hip-hop are whispered as participants, their alleged involvement suggesting this wasn't confined to Diddy's mansions. It was something bigger, an influence spilling across the music industry, binding careers and reputations together under a shadow system. What investigators reportedly find compelling are the details. These aren't shapeless rumors floating through tabloids. They are allegations packed with specifics, distinctive markings on participants, physical evidence that could be verified, operations run with such precision they resembled corporate structures. That kind of detail is hard to dismiss. And that is why federal authorities are said to have seized thousands of hours of recordings, material that could either expose the truth or silence the whispers once and for all. Think about the stakes. Even if half of this is proven, the fallout would be catastrophic. Careers built over decades, gone overnight. Cultural icons reduced to cautionary tales. A complete restructuring of Hollywood's power dynamics. While celebrities rushed to erase tweets and delete Instagram archives, federal investigators were building a case piece by piece, not just gossip, but what insiders describe as an ironclad narrative. And unlike PR spin, federal cases aren't built on trending hashtags, and they're built on evidence. That evidence came to a head on March 25th, 2024. Homeland Security raids stormed multiple properties in what officials called precision strikes. These weren't fishing expeditions. They were targeted blows against what prosecutors allege was a 2-decade enterprise of exploitation and control. And what agents reportedly uncovered left even seasoned investigators stunned. Over 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricants, quantities so excessive they immediately raised red flags. Illegally modified AR-15 rifles stashed in luxury estates. Hidden caches of controlled substances ranging from ketamine to GHB. And most damning of all, vaults of recorded footage. Thousands of hours prosecutors claim show systematic abuse on an industrial scale. Witnesses even allege that some of the oils were tampered with, infused with substances meant to leave people disoriented or physically unable to resist. That claim alone, if substantiated, transforms the story from one of wild parties to one of deliberate manipulation. Federal charges laid out the picture: racketeering conspiracy, transportation under the Mann Act, exploitation by force. The kind of sweeping charges prosecutors call their nuclear option for dismantling organized crime. These weren't minor infractions. They were life sentence level accusations. Now, Sean Combs was acquitted of the most severe counts, convicted instead on 2 lesser charges tied to transportation. But in those 8 weeks of testimony, a disturbing portrait was painted for the public to see. Prosecutors claimed they could link him to over 40 arranged encounters with male escorts between 2021 and 2024. Former associates even had nicknames for these nights: freak-offs, hotel sessions, and wild king nights. What once sounded like gossip whispered in dark corners of the internet was now immortalized in the federal record. And for Hollywood, no amount of silence could erase that. The coordination, sources say, was never sloppy or accidental. It was systematic, planned down to the smallest detail. Federal documents reportedly reveal a chilling paper trail: text messages showing Sean Diddy Combs arranging payments for escorts, travel records that aligned with alleged victims' movements, hotel receipts tied to luxury stays, and even supply requests for items needed during these so-called encounters. This wasn't random misbehavior. According to investigators, it was a machine. One law enforcement official didn't mince words. Speaking anonymously, they allegedly compared Combs' activities to the darkest scandals of recent history, placing him in the same breath as Jeffrey Epstein and Harvey Weinstein. The common thread? These weren't isolated incidents. The claims point to over 15 years of organized gatherings designed not just for pleasure, but for control, leverage, and blackmail material. The federal timeline is damning. Prosecutors describe an alleged criminal enterprise spanning 2 decades, from 2004 all the way through 2024. Within that period, multiple women have claimed they were coerced, manipulated through both physical intimidation and psychological control. Sources say victims were allegedly silenced with payouts, kept compliant with substances, and trapped in a cycle of dependence that blurred the line between consent and captivity. What elevates this case above rumor and speculation is the alleged mountain of digital evidence. Homeland Security's raids reportedly seized dozens of electronic devices, hard drives, laptops, encrypted phones, containing what prosecutors describe as hours upon hours of explicit recordings. This isn't the kind of case that hangs on he said, she said contradictions. If the reports are true, investigators are sitting on cold, hard footage, proof that could obliterate alibis and silence defenses. And that's why the silence in Hollywood feels so deafening. The mathematics of celebrity survival are brutally simple. Every public denial can be cross-checked, every statement can be weaponized, and every attempt to defend oneself risks becoming perjury if it collides with recorded evidence. Speaking out isn't just risky. It could be career suicide, legal suicide, even personal annihilation. Crisis management firms across Los Angeles and New York are in overdrive. Teams of publicists, lawyers, and consultants are said to be holding emergency meetings, crafting airtight strategies. Scandal insurance policies are being triggered, multi-million-dollar legal retainers are being cashed, and every press release is combed over word by word. The game plan is clear. Say nothing until the full scope of what the feds hold becomes undeniable. But silence in itself tells a story. The public sees the vacuum of words and grows more curious. Internet sleuths catalog every deleted Instagram post, every canceled red carpet appearance, every oddly timed health break. Fan accounts that once updated daily have gone dark. Investigators, too, are watching, and for them, coordinated silence can look less like innocence and more like collusion. Meanwhile, insiders whisper about coordination at the highest levels. Celebrity legal teams aren't just protecting their own clients, they're allegedly comparing notes, sharing information about potential subpoenas, even coaching one another on what not to say. In this view, Hollywood isn't fractured, It's united, bound together in a desperate pact of mutual survival. The quiet is not accidental. It's a survival strategy for an entire power structure. But survival strategies come with their own risks. As weeks drag into months, the silence begins to crack under its own weight. Public trust erodes. The press grows bolder. Federal agents grow more suspicious. And every delay gives independent investigators more time to piece together digital evidence, leaks, and testimony. The longer the silence lasts, the louder it sounds. Hollywood's gamble is simple. Stay silent, stay still, and hope the federal spotlight doesn't move beyond Diddy's immediate circle. But sources say more than 100 additional cases are already under federal review. If that's true, silence isn't protection. It's just a pause before collapse. And then there's Katt Williams, the comedian who called his shot back in January 2024. Sitting on Club Shay Shay's stage, he said with certainty, P. Diddy gonna catch hell in 2024. At the time, many laughed it off, dismissing him as another eccentric celebrity stirring gossip. But look around now. Federal raids, digital scrubbing, celebrity silence. It all plays like a prophecy unfolding in real time. The message is clear. This isn't just about one man's downfall. It's about the unraveling of an empire. The convictions, the seized evidence, the hush across Hollywood, they prove that the industry's biggest secret isn't breaking quietly. It's shattering with the force of a tidal wave, ripping apart the illusions of fame, power, and untouchable privilege. And when the dust settles, the question won't just be about Diddy. It'll be about everyone who stood in those rooms, signed those contracts, stayed silent when they could have spoken, and now faces a reckoning that no amount of PR spin can contain.